Greasing will always be a mess, but it doesn't have to be a pain. This is the Milwaukee M18 Grease Gun, and it's the model number 2646. Now, there are pretty cool features on this gun, as well as there's a pretty cool accessory we're going to show you as well. Let's get started. This is the Milwaukee M18 Grease Gun. This is not an M18 Fuel. It is not a brushless motor tool. However, we'll cover that here in a moment. The model number is the 2646, -20 if you just want the tool, or -21 if you want the tool with the charger, with the bag in the back, and the strap right here, and the tool obviously, and the 1.5 amp hour 18-volt battery here on board. So if you want the kit, -21, bare tool, -20. Now there's several cool features on this grease gun. And in fact, this is not a new grease gun. This has been released, I believe, at least a couple of years, if not a few years. But I did want to cover it because there are some cool features on this, and it's a very usable item that's great for maintenance. In fact, mandatory for many maintenance items, especially on motor vehicles and heavy equipment. Now there's a dial here. That is not a speed dial. That is a dispensary dial, or the amount of grease that it dispenses. We'll cover that here in one moment. We also have a speed switch right here, 1 and 2. And we'll actually discuss what all that means in a moment as well. Right here on the front of the tool, we have a light. So you're getting that boat ready for the next morning. So you're up really early, or you're up late at night. And rather than carrying a flashlight, you need a light to actually deliver that grease to those hubs. Push that button right there. You get a little bit of light there on board the tool as you're using it. Now on board the tool, we have a clip and a little holder right there. So keep that nice and tidy, well, as tight as you can keep a grease gun. It'll probably get greasy over time, but still, the end sticks in right there, and then a little clip to hold it nice and secure. And then I believe that's a, 3 or 4 foot hose. Now, max PSI on this grease gun is 10,000. However, you can drop that down to 5,000 as well, and we'll go over that here in one moment. We have a little hole right here that is for this strap. And so if you're utilizing this strap, so maybe you're working on heavy equipment or carrying around a tractor, and rather than holding it by the handle, which is not that heavy, but still you can put this strap on, throw it around your shoulder. However, one hook's right here and the other one is hidden right here in front of the battery. In fact, if you got this little stick up right there, if you push on that, up pops a little eyelet, and now you can hook the other end of that strap right there. And again, make it easy to throw over your shoulder and carry that around. Now, the wide base on this makes it really easy to sit up by itself. In fact, there's a rubberized coating right here that makes it feel nice as well. When you're setting it there, it's not all gritty and plasticky. As well as the tube right here, the steel tube, has some very heavy knurling right here. So it's easy to grab, even with greasy hands, to spin off this and replace that cartridge as you need to. And we'll show how to do that here in just one moment. There's also another accessory that is going to be very handy to use on something like this, especially if you're using different greases. And then right here on the front of the tool is a very important item. A lot of times on grease guns, you'll see a little thumb screw, a little knurled screw. This does not need that. We just got a little push button, and we'll show you what that is here in just one moment. Now, this is not a brushless tool. As I mentioned, it's not an M18 Fuel. It's an M18 Grease Gun. When you see the M18 Fuel designation, that tells us it has a brushless motor. If you look in here, you can kind of see the canned motor here. This is one of those tools that does not need a brushless motor. The brush motor does absolutely fine. It's plenty efficient to last all day long. It's also plenty powerful enough to deliver that 10,000 PSI of grease dispensing for any of your heavy equipment out there, cars, trucks, things like that. So there's no need for a brushless motor in this, until brushless motors get so cheap that they're cheaper than the regular canned brushed motors. But again, no need for it at this moment. Let's go ahead and load up this grease gun and get it ready for use. So the first thing I'm going to do, now right now, I know there's no grease in here. There's a little bit from the factory that's in the hose there, but there's none in this tube, at least nothing more than a little bit of residual. But before I release that, especially if there were grease in here or a grease cartridge, the first thing I want to do is pull this handle out, which when you do that, you're going to be pulling against the spring, and so it's going to be a little bit of a pain to do. And once you pull it all the way out, you pull it over into this groove right here. There's a groove actually on this rod right here, and you slide it over so that locks it into place. So now you've got a spring that's all coiled up here in this metal tube so that now we can put a new tube of grease in. So once we have that handle all the way out, we can spin this off. And there we have it. So we can see down the tube there. There's a rubber plunger that's now pulled all the way back because we've pulled this rod, this T-handle, all the way back and locked it into place. Maybe see better right there how we pulled it back and then slid it over. It's like a keyhole right there, and now that's got it locked in. So that plunger is locked in all the way back there in the back. If you want to, you can clean out this grease, or probably be just fine to leave in there as well. Now, you don't have to get all nasty when you're loading your grease guns, and let me show you how to do that. So when you get a tube of grease or your typical grease cartridge, sometimes you can get these in like a sausage pack, and you can also do this in bulk where you're just kind of sucking the grease up in the tube. But if you're doing that, I'm sure you know exactly how to do that. I'm not going to go over that right now. But when you get a typical grease cartridge, you've got a pull top here, looks like an old soda can, right there, where you can pull the top on it, or maybe like your Vienna sausages if you like those. Anyway, and on the other end, you have probably a plastic lid, maybe a foil cap, but in this case, a plastic lid. Take your plastic lid off, but leave your metal tab on. And so what you're going to do is take the open end now and shove it inside the tube. Now, you may get a little air pressure here, but it should be fine. You should be able to shove it in there, and it's going to push air out that little keyhole right there. So push that in until it bottoms out. So once that metal ring gets to the bottom right here, now we can lift this tab. Now, there really shouldn't be any pressure on this, pushing it out. And be careful when opening your tab, because you might have a little bit of excess grease. And you can not worry about it, or you can be kind of a pain like I am and want to get every last piece in there. And throw that away. But by the way, keep your cap around. Show you why later. So now we're ready to go in our grease gun. Do not release this rod yet. We want to now go in our grease gun. Might have to give it a little bit of pressure and get the thread started. There we go. And just seat that by hand. Okay, now we've got our grease in there. Now we need to release this handle here. So we're just going to pull it back a little bit and over. And now we're going to shove that rod all the way down in there. Now, the plunger is being pushed by a spring, but the rod is now sticking all the way through the grease. So you've got this rod sticking all the way through there, and you've got the plunger probably about right here with a spring behind that pushing on that. And we'll take it apart here in just one moment again and show you what we're talking about. Now, we're not ready to dispense yet because there's probably somewhere between the end of this tube and the actual pump, there's probably a little bit of air somewhere. Let me show you what to do with that. So now, before we dispense any liquid, I'm going to push this and we'll see if we can't hear. Okay, we didn't really hear anything, but sometimes there's air in there, and when you push that, you'll hear it actually hiss out. If I pull the trigger, let's see here. So I'm not getting anything. Let me push this. Still nothing. Let me show you a little trick. So we'll pull my handle back until I get to the plunger. And once I get in there, there's like a keyhole in that plunger as well. So I'm going to pull this back. And I'm going to turn it to where I can lock it into that plunger. And now I'm going to push. And I'm going to push at the same time. Pull that handle at the same time as pushing this. And now you see I've just squeezed out some grease. So now I know I've got grease all the way to the head of my pump. So now I'm completely primed. I've got grease all the way to the head of the pump as well as all the way down the hose, and now I'm dispensing grease. So sometimes you may have to actually push in on that while pushing this right here to actually prime all the air out of that. You could probably run the pump for a while and do that, but sometimes it's just as easy to do that. And now I know that it's primed and I need the rod back in there. I can just put a little pressure on it and turn it until I feel it go back through that keyhole, and now it will slide in. And again, I'll show you that on the plunger here in just one moment. Now, right now I have this on the on setting on this dial. That means that as long as I have the trigger pulled, it's going to run that pump. So until I let go of that trigger, it's going to keep dispensing grease forever, or until it runs out of grease, or until I let go of the trigger. Now, if I put it on 1, now let's watch what it does. So now put the counter on 1, and I'm going to pull the trigger and hold it. Okay? It dispensed that much grease. I'm going to do it again. Again, dispensing that much grease. So basically the 1 is counting the number of strokes of the piston, so it's delivering 1 stroke of grease. If I put it on 5, we should hear it do that 5 times. Which, by the way, I don't know if you notice here, there's kind of a dead man switch on here, or a lock, if you will, that I have to slide this over in order to engage the trigger. If I have it slid over the other way, it's locked that out. So push this over, and now I've got it on 5. I'm going to hold the trigger, and there you go. So quite a bit different of a look. So this is set on 1, this is set on 5. We'll do that one more time. So you see, we're dispensing the same amount of grease each time when we're using that dial when it's not on the on setting. And we could go all the way up to 50, and where it will count those 50 strokes. I'll just turn that down. Let's turn that down to 10, and now we'll try 10. So here's 1, here's 5, and here's 10. Now this is also in speed 1. Now if I go to speed 2, what it's going to do is increase the speed at which it delivers. However, the PSI is going to drop. So in speed 1, I get 10,000 PSI with 3.5 ounces per minute of delivery speed. In speed 2, my PSI drops in half to 5,000 PSI, but I get 10 ounces per minute of delivery speed. So I'm more than threefold, or right at threefold of speed. However, my pressure has dropped in half. So now we're in speed 2. We're at the same 10. Now let's see how quick that will deliver that. So now we're just delivering that a lot faster. Back to speed 1. Back to speed 2. That's very interesting. So the number of strokes at 10, basically at double, so you also have to take that into account as well. So if you up your speed with the same amount of counts, you're going to get less dispensing of that grease. So just understand that when you're using this, again, you're going to drop in pressure in speed 2, but you're going to increase the speed, but it's really only increasing the speed of the pump. It's not pumping more grease. Okay, now let's talk about a process as well as a cool accessory to have with this tool. Now, when using grease, a lot of times you may be doing kind of general lubrication, and then you may need something for waterproof, and you may need something for high temp, like wheel bearings, things like that. And I could go on here and I could say, okay, I'm just going to put GP here for my general purpose grease, or maybe HT for high temp, or something like that. However, now I'm responsible to keep that somewhat clean so I can see it. Also to be able to take some brake clean or something and wipe that off so I can put whatever else on it when I replace it. However, there's another option that will cost you a little bit of money, but I think it's a pretty cool option. So let's go ahead and get this ready. Remember, we got to pull our plunger out. We don't want grease going everywhere. Now we'll spin this off. And so I could definitely take that tube out, but let's do something else right now. I'm going to take the backside off. Again, make sure that you're got that locked out of place or you'll have a spring going crazy on you. Probably still going to make a little bit of a mess right here. Okay, so let's get this out. So now, rather than using this tube, I can lay this aside. In fact, I'll just lay it right here. Stand it right there. And look what we have right here. So now we have a clear acrylic tube, which, by the way, understand this, there's no pressure in this tube, or very limited pressure. So don't think that this has got to hold up to 5,000 or 10,000 PSI. All that pressure is downstream of the pump. So none of that pressure has to be here. Yes, it needs to be heavy duty enough to be beat around, but again, this is not a high pressure system on this side of the pump or in this cartridge here. But now what we have is when I have my grease in there, I can absolutely see what's in there. I don't have to guess. I can see, oh, that's my red high temp grease. Well, cool deal. Now let's get this in there, because you can't just screw it in there. If you watch here, it doesn't even fit in. And that's because we've got a spacer right here. Say Phillips screw right here. And then there's a tab here and a tab on the opposite side. I need to push those and slide this back. And this spacer right here slides out of there. Put that on my other tube. And now, first let me pull the tab on this. Now my tube will slide in there. Now I can see that that's my high temp Mystic JT6 grease in there. I can see the red tube tells me right away what I'm running. Now before I put this cap on, let's go over this as I was mentioning. So you see the rubber plunger right here, and then we have the spring that's coiled up right there. And so I'm going to do my best to not hurt myself here. And you can see what's going on there. Now, I hope I can get that compressed without it going crazy on me. But that's what's happening inside that tube. Also, again, right here on this plunger, if I go down and turn it, you see it's not down to the bottom because it's, as I was mentioning, kind of not in that keyhole. But if I turn this certain spot, then it bottoms all the way out, and now I can actually push on that as I need to. So it can be kind of free plunging in there, if you will, and you can also get to a point where you can lock it out and then be able to push on that plunger as well. So after herding some cats, I finally got my plunger back in where it needs to be, and now we can push that in here, and you can see how tight that plunger fits in that tube, pressing against the side. Now release our plunger, and now we're ready to go with our high temp. Let's see if we have to actually prime and release the air out of this or not. Go back to on. There we go. So now we've got our high temp ready to go. So pretty cool little accessory there to be able to see the actual grease that you've got in the gun. And now if I wanted to swap that out again, and now I've got my general purpose grease in there. Now I've got pressure, push that, and it's already coming out. So now I'm down to my multi-purpose grease now. Now you can get the Milwaukee 2646-20, which means bare tool. You get the tool, no battery, no charger, just the case and the tool without the battery, and with the steel or the aluminum housing there, and that's going to run you $229. Now here's the kicker. I just checked the pricing on it. Typically it's $300 for the kit with the charger, the case, the battery, and the tool and the strap. Usually that's $300 or $299. Right now it's $229. So literally for the price of the bare tool, you can get the 1.5 amp hour battery, the charger, and the case. So I'd highly recommend it if you don't already have a cordless grease gun. The accessory here, the clear accessory, that's $50 for that tube. Not everybody's going to want that or even need that, but I would say if you're using the same tool to do different types of greases, it comes in very handy. Even if you can just see the color there, typically you know what color your cartridges are and what that pertains to as far as what type of grease it is, so it still comes in very handy. I will say the cardboard cartridges, and you probably know what I'm talking about, looks like paper like you see right here, fit in the acrylic tube absolutely fine. However, this is a plastic tube and it's a couple of thousandths bigger than the cardboard. I measured it with my micrometer. It does not fit well in this. So you can jam it in there, but you will have a heck of a time getting it out. So if you are going to use the acrylic tube, highly recommend that you make sure that you're using the paper or cardboard tubes and not the plastic tubes. I don't know why this is coming in at a larger diameter, but it is. Again, I use my digital micrometer to check that. And by the way, 5-year warranty on the tool, 2-year warranty on the battery. As we mentioned on the pricing, it makes sense to buy the kit right now since it's the same price as the bare tool. Now, not sure how long it will stay that way, but it might be something you want to jump on. Or you might say, you know what? I like hand pumping that grease gun. Well, keep on keeping on then. Hey, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, well, you know what to do. Give us that thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.